Hi, superheroes! I'm Pink Phoenix, coming to you from Purdue University College of Veterinary Medicine's League of VetaHumanz. Today, our special guest on VetaHumanz Live is VetaHuman Phenomenal Woman. Thanks for being on the show, Phenomenal Woman.
Thank you for the invite, Pink Phoenix.
This is going to be awesome. To get started, can you tell us a little bit about your story?
So I definitely will. I don't know how far to go back, but I will go back as far as I can to make it make sense. So I have been wanting to be a veterinarian since I was a very young little girl. I decided at around 5 or 6 years of age that that was the thing that I wanted to do. So fast forward all these years, and here I am now, almost 40 years later, 35 years later, actually living the dream. So I'm excited to be able to use my powers for good and be a superhero in the veterinary world.
Excellent. When you were 5 or 6 years old, what kind of veterinarian did you think you would be?
So in my mind, I thought I was going to be some veterinarian that could save every pet. Being a small child, young child, I had lots of pets. When I was growing up, spaying and neutering had not yet become a big thing to do. So every pet that I had did procreate and make more little ones. So we always kept all of them. A lot of them were indoors, outdoors, the garage, wherever we could fit them is where they were. And that was my passion. I loved every single pet that I had. I was gifted my first pet at around 3 or 4 years old that I can recall. And that was the pet that by 5 years old had sparked my interest in becoming a veterinarian. But my pets over time, and it wasn't an extended period of time, started to die. And I was, these things are awfully young. I just got the dog, seems like a few weeks ago or a year ago. And it was obvious to me as even a young child that these pets were maybe dying because of things that could have been prevented, like being hit by cars or looking for a warm place to sleep and they slept in the wrong spot that ended or ultimately ended up with their demise at a young point of life. So I decided that, outside of being anything else, I want to be able to save all the pets in the world. That was my plan. I realized later, now being a veterinarian, it doesn't quite work that way. There are a lot more things that go into that.
But how cool that at such a young age you were already doing preventive medicine.
Definitely.
That's great.
Now I know what it's called.
Tell us more about your path to vet college.
So my path to vet college was interesting. Like I said, I decided at a young age that I wanted to become a veterinarian. In the ninth grade, there was a trip that we took for what you would call a college tour. Our school took us on a college tour in ninth grade, and we toured different schools because I grew up in Mississippi. So we toured different schools between Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. So we stopped at UAB, we stopped at University of Georgia, we went to Georgia Tech. We stopped, our final destination, I think on the way back, was Tuskegee University. So of course at University of Georgia, they did have a school of veterinary medicine. But at Tuskegee University, because of the way we pulled into the campus, that was the first thing that I saw. I fell in love with the campus. Didn't know much about historically Black colleges and universities at the time, but that's what also sparked my interest in what's called HBCUs, or historically Black colleges and universities, to see so many people that look like me gather on a campus, let alone being in veterinary school. And at the time, I didn't know that it was a disparity between the number of African Americans in the profession. All I knew was this was a school that I saw, and it had a lot of Black professionals and a lot of people that looked like me wanted to go to veterinary school. So I had decided in ninth grade, this is where I was going to go to vet school. I was also a big band member from the sixth grade. So I played the clarinet. I decided, I was to stay in the band, stick with the band. I went all the way through high school in the band. And when I got to my senior year in high school, my job profession and goals hadn't changed. I was going to go to Tuskegee University for undergrad, and I was going to finish veterinary school there, and I was become a veterinarian that saved all the animals. So my senior year in high school, our band director made every senior in the band try out for a local, I'm going to say a local, but it was a pretty predominant university historically Black college and university in Mississippi. I said, well, I'm a band member, but I'm not a jazz band member. So the jazz band members are traveling to Alcorn for a jazz competition, and I'm not going. And he says, no, you're going, and you're going to compete, and you're going to try to see if you can get a scholarship. So I went, I auditioned. about 12 or 13 students out of that audition from my high school were offered full scholarships to Alcorn State University. So because that would put me at a free ride to Alcorn, Tuskegee was a private university that I needed money to pay for because the scholarship that I received will only cover the first 2.5 years of school. So by default, I ended up at Alcorn State University on a band scholarship for free. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'll do that, and I'll go to Tuskegee when I finish my undergraduate degree. So my advisor at Alcorn State University was a Mississippi State University graduate from the vet school. I got ready to graduate. I had decided, turned in my application to Tuskegee, and she said, "Is that the only school you applied to?" I said, "Yes, it's the only school I want to go to." She said, "Well, you probably shouldn't put all of your eggs in one basket. I think you should apply to Mississippi State. You do live in Mississippi. You are a Mississippi resident. It can save you a lot of money to be able to get into a state university school for which you're a resident." I say, "Okay, fine, I'll apply, but I don't have the money to pay for it." So that was my excuse. And I remember praying the next day, and I said, "Well, God, if you want me to go to Mississippi State and even apply, I would say I don't have the money, so I can't apply." And literally the next day, somebody dropped the exact amount of money in my hand, and I knew what it was for. So I filled out my application to Mississippi State University, and I received a interview with them within a few months of applying. I still had heard nothing from Tuskegee, and then I received an acceptance letter after my interview from Mississippi State. They give you 2 weeks to accept. I waited the full 2 weeks because I wanted to hear that I would get into Tuskegee, but I hadn't even had an interview yet. So I ended up accepting to Mississippi State University, which is where I ended up getting my College of Veterinary Medicine degree. From there, I enjoyed my tenure at Mississippi State. I learned a lot, but it was definitely an eye-opening experience because I went to a predominantly Black university and then I went to a predominantly white institution. So it was two different worlds that I had to learn to evolve to. But because disparities for African Americans exist in the veterinary profession, it definitely helped me to become equipped to be able to kind of succeed in a world where there will not be many people that look like me, which is what my advisor was trying to get me to understand. She too was an African American female, and she wanted me to be able to realize that you can succeed on both sides, whether it's a predominantly white institution or if you're at a historically Black college university, which I think is one of the keys to being comfortable and working in an environment where you are a minority. In addition to that, I decided I was going to stay in Mississippi, and when I graduated, moved to Georgia to practice. I spontaneously got engaged and moved to Arkansas to practice. From Arkansas, I stayed there for 2 years in practice, and I thought this is going to be my forever home. My husband and I were moved to California, where he moved to pastor church. I practiced veterinary medicine in California for 8 years in the Bay Area. So that was not a part of my plan at all. I thought I was going to be a private practice veterinarian forever. I loved my first job, but I got to California and I did private practice for about a year and a half. I ended up in academia for another 4 years as a veterinary technician instructor and their surgical veterinarian. And then I became the program director of the veterinary technician program for almost 2 years. Then I got into wellness care because I had children. So I became a wellness veterinarian. So I didn't do surgery as much. And that was my first kind of work in a corporate setting for medicine. And from there, I moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana 3 years ago, where I still practice in corporate practice. But now somehow I've ended up in diversity, equity, and inclusion, it being a big part of my profession. So my path has taken a lot of twists and turns, but I can honestly say it has been for the best developmental process of becoming a well-rounded veterinarian.
This is outstanding. How you definitely are a phenomenal woman, and just positioning yourself, you open yourself to so many opportunities that life brought you, and you were right there, and that you took each one, and look where it's gotten you.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for sharing.
Super excited. No problem.
Well, Now we have a pretty good idea of why you are a phenomenal woman, but how did you come up with your superhero name?
So the superhero name actually came from a poem by Maya Angelou. At the same time, I was doing the process of even applying to vet schools and different things like that. I would collect different little trinkets to keep in my like memory books. So my trip to Tuskegee University, I remember going into the bookstore and I found this little poem in there, and it was by George Washington Carver, who was a student at one point in time at Tuskegee. He discovered all the uses for peanuts and peanut butter and all that fun stuff. But I found a little poem in there, and I was sticking in my memory book. And as time went on, years and years would pass, and I would add more things to this memory book. And I was reading, I think it might have been Black History Month or something, and I ran across the poem "Phenomenal Woman," and I started, researching the author, and the story that the poem tells about why Black women are phenomenal and why you're not the bottom, and why things about you that are different are great, really stuck with me because there are different things that we'll face in life, especially when you're dealing with things that racism being an issue in some areas, and sometimes it makes you feel like you're not good enough, you're not great enough. And so by reading this poem, it gave me a lot of motivation and encouragement. So I ended up taking that poem and sticking it in one of the trinkets of my memory book. And I was looking through that memory book just a few days ago, and I ran across it again. And then I thought about the email that you sent me about watching Raising Dion. And just a few years ago, it was a big movement where different women were buying the shirts, Phenomenal Woman, and you were all to wear them on this specific day as a representation to remind you that you are phenomenal, and it reminds you of the poem that Maya Angelou wrote as well. So when I was doing something, I saw the t-shirt and I said, this is going to be my superhero name. So it just kind of sparked things from past that brought it to the present when I saw the shirt. So then outside of that, when you emailed me, I said, I've been planning to watch Raising Dion. I should definitely go watch it because I want to know why this show reminded her of me. So then I started watching it, and I have two small children that are 8 and 4, and they're watching it, but they're not into the first episode. And I'm all into it. Like, y'all look the Legos are flying, right? So then my kids like, Mom, we don't want to watch this. And they could care less. So then I started binging it, and then they started binge watching it. So we jumped into season 2. First episode, his mom's in the bed, and I was like, "Oh, it's the T-shirt. She's wearing it." So that's why I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, "Okay, now I know why." But we got caught up with the Raising Dion. Binge watched it 2 weekends ago before I got your email. After I got your email, and now I'm like, "Where's season 3?" Like, I need to know what happens. But I thought it was amazing because she had the shirt on, and I'm sure she probably had the shirt on for the same reason that everybody else in the world wore the shirt. So it was just an amazing thing to see for me, just like I probably was for you.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. One of my former students turned me on to Raising Dion when it was a Kickstarter comic book. And so
Okay.
I was so excited when I saw it on Netflix. And then we had to wait a long time for season 2. So you're lucky. You just got to watch them all
I
together.
wish we got to go straight into it. Well, we waited on season 3. My kids like, but they watch it every day. Their favorite episode is the Storm Killer episode. We must know it by heart now.
That's excellent. I hear you're building up your business skills.
So just to go along with the story of my life, I have a really good friend that I met through my husband. So my husband and her husband basically grew up together. They're almost like brothers. And when they got met, when my husband's friend got married to the girl who's now my friend, we immediately kind of hit it off. My husband was in their wedding, and she and I, just fell in love over our profession. At the time, she was a veterinary technician, and I was in vet school. And then we fast forward a few years later, and life had me moving all over the country. She moved all over the country. We ended up in Arkansas at the exact same time, but at the time that they got there, we were moving just a few months later to go to California. She was getting ready to have her first kid. She was still a veterinary technician. We moved to California. We stayed out there 8 years. Fast forward through everybody's lives. She ends up in veterinary school at LSU. She finishes vet school at LSU in Baton Rouge, and she moves like a few months later to Waco. And a few months later, I moved to Baton Rouge. So we always made a joke about how we are always chasing each other and we're never in the same place at the same time. So she starts practicing veterinary medicine in Waco, Texas. I'm now practicing in Baton Rouge, and they just lived here. So they kind of gave us all the ins and outs of Baton Rouge because she had been here for 4 years in school. So then they get an offer to make some changes, possibly move. Doesn't really go through. Then a few months later, or about a year or so later, they come back again to visit, and she and I talk, and then she goes back home. And whenever we're together, it's like time always flies, and we'll always joke how we want to. If we were ever together at the same time, we would open a clinic and we would practice veterinary medicine together. I talked to a different friend who gave me a call one day, and this was shortly before my friend and I had, kind of joked about it. And a young lady called and she says, "My daughter wants to be a veterinarian. Can you give me help about what to do, what she needs to become a veterinarian?" So I talked to her. I told her the things that I thought could help with her being, so young, 9 or 10 years old. And she says, before she hangs up the phone, she says, "Do you have your own clinic?" I said, "No, I don't." I said, "I don't plan on owning a clinic. It's just not for me. It's a lot of work. Not something I'm super interested in." So she says, "Well, don't be surprised if you open your own." I said, "Well, I don't plan on it at this point in life. So I don't know." So she says, "Well, don't be surprised if that happens." And I said, "Well, there's only one way I will open a clinic, and my really good friend has to live near me, and she doesn't. She just graduated. She moved to Texas, and that's not going to happen. So if it does happen, God has to make some huge changes. So unless that happens, then I don't think I'm going to open a clinic." And she says, "Okay, just remember what I told you." So my friend shows up a few months later, and she's coming to Baton Rouge quite often. And I said, "Y'all sure have been here a lot." And then she looks at her husband and says, "You didn't tell her?" I said, "Tell me what?" And then she says, "We're moving back to Baton Rouge." I said, "You have got to be kidding me." She says, "No, I'm for real. I'm serious. We're moving back." So they moved back. She starts working. We end up working at the same place. Just ironically, it wasn't even, we weren't even hiring. And they ended up needing somebody, and she was able to get on to work. So then she starts working, and we started joking about opening a clinic again. And then things kind of just started rolling, and we started meeting different people that were like, "I think you guys will make great business owners, and you should do this and you should do that." So by my work through diversity, equity, inclusion with the AVMA, with the National Association of Black Veterinarians, being a part of the Black DVM network, it kind of opened doors for being able to network with different people. And I found out that the Multicultural Veterinary Medical Association was offering a business startup grant for those who were people of color and had a business idea. So I decided to pray about it. My business partner and I submitted for it, and we got the grant offer in November to be able to start our clinic. So that was the first part into practice ownership that has been a surprise to me. Currently, I'm looking at trying to go through a course at UC Davis to be able to learn more about money and finances, and it's a quick certification when you don't have a business degree. So I'm looking at doing that this summer. So that's $2,500 that I'm hope I can write another grant to receive. But that's kind of where I am with business ownership. Totally unexpected.
That's excellent. And you upped me on my next question because I was going to ask what are the best resources when you're trying to do this.
That's I mean, you honestly have to look for it or stumble upon it. I've had a chance to be able to be a part of different conferences, like the Multicultural Veterinary Medical Association had a conference, their first one, I think, that was virtual this past year, this fall. And that conference gave a lot of information for veterinarians of color on practice startup, on how to do different things that can help with that. And from there, I've been searching, researching, looking, and I saw just an email like from DVM 360 or something that talked about the UC Davis offering their business startup again. And so I was like, business startup? And I looked at it and saw that the course was there for practitioners who own practices, who are looking to own one. And it's just a quick course for the summer that gives you a certification versus trying to get a business degree. So I think sometimes when one door opens, there are other doors that follow behind it, and you just have to be open to walking through them.
Absolutely. Oh, excellent. I know you are very passionate about mentorship and diversity. Can you tell us more about how you're using your superpowers to inspire and support others?
Yes, I definitely would love to. So, a lot of times I get phone calls from family and friends or people that have just found me on Facebook that, either Google Black veterinarians or something like that. And they have sent me messages about talking to their children. I will do Zoom calls with people that just want information about how to become a veterinarian, what's best for their children at different ages. On my job, we have externs that come in. Some of them literally are looking for me because I'm an African American female. I've had students that have wanted to extern with me just to be able to extern with somebody different to get a different perspective. And I try to really hard to make myself available because when I was younger, it was really hard for me to find mentorship. So I said, if I ever became successful and became that veterinarian that I wanted to become, my goal would be to give back to communities of color to help inspire the next generation of students and doctors. So I do that. I started a YouTube channel called Dope Black Vet just to hopefully be an inspiration to those that need inspiring or a chance to show and see somebody that looks like them in the veterinary world. I try to, any speaking engagements that come up, being able to do podcasts like this. I was interviewed by My Veterinary Life. I did a podcast with them. I've done different conversations on COVID with, I can't even think of the radio station, the radio network, very popular that people listen to for news. I just try to be available whenever I'm asked, depending on what it's for. I did a Black History Month interview with Covetris last month, so I just really try to make myself available for anybody who wants to know more about how to get into the profession, what to expose your children to, any questions they may have. I go to preschool events. I do everything I can to expose young students because I feel like there is a place where the passion starts when you're young. And sometimes because you don't see enough that looks like you don't think it's possible or exists. So the passion that you once had, you change your mind about because you don't see that it's achievable. But I can't tell you how many times I've had clients that come in that literally stop me in the middle of my exam to take a photo with me, to FaceTime their daughter or son or grandchild to say, you will never believe what Fluffy has for a doctor today. They apologize, and I'm like, no, it's okay. I understand. I probably would have been the same way when I was a kid, or my mom would have been the same way. And really try to push to parents how important it is to cultivate that passion that their children have and not think it's just a phase. Because sometimes in my community and people of color, pets are not our thing. Animals aren't really our thing. And it can be confusing for the parent to their child to think that they're just going through a phase, but it really, really could truly be something they're passionate about.
Well, thank you so much for supporting so many new veterinarians. You've had so many different experiences. What's been your best day ever as a vet so far?
Wow, best day ever. I've had a couple. One recently was a student that I helped mentor text me out of the blue to let me know that they got into veterinary school. That was a really cool experience because I still remember the day that I texted my mentors and people that supported me um, that I got in. The one doctor that gave me a chance to do an externship at his clinic, I was a senior in undergrad when I stepped foot for the first time in a veterinary clinic. I was deathly afraid that I would hate it and be stuck with a degree, animal science degree that I didn't know what to do with. So I was, it brought back memories for me when that student texted me, the excitement in her text, the phone call to let me know that she got in. As a doctor, being able to save the life of a 2-pound kitten that was suffering from flea bite anemia, being able to be that person that in that moment when I was a kid probably had several kittens that died from flea bite anemia and I just didn't know. But to know that now I have the capacity to inject just a small amount of blood and this kitten turned completely around. And the little girl that came in with her mom before school crying and the mom saying, can you please save my daughter's kitten? And me not knowing if I could or if I couldn't, but to see that kitten in such a lethargic, bad shape to know the moment I gave it blood that gave it life, it immediately was hungry and ready to eat in my hand. So it's moments like that that make it worth it, and it outweighs some of the bad days that you have when your patients don't. And that's what I realized in veterinary school, that as much as I wanted to save every pet in the world, I could not save every one of them, but at least I had the capacity to try.
Absolutely, and you can save as many as possible. So you're doing a lot of things. Launching your business, being a mom, learning all these new things. What do you do for fun? What do you do for you?
So that one, I think because I enjoy everything that I do, is almost always like fun. My friend and I were talking the other day about how much we really love our jobs, and going to work every day is fun for us, because you're doing something that you dreamed of doing every single day. So as tough as some days may be, as tough as some clients may be, work is fun every day. And it's even more fun when you get to work with the people that you want to work with, or you get to do it next to your best friend. So it's always great in that regard. But today I'm off and I've scheduled me a massage. So I'll be doing that today. So I definitely try to get into self-care as much as possible. I'm definitely a big fan of Peloton. So I do have a Peloton bike. So it definitely gets me going to be able to have a group to join, hashtag to ride with. It's always fun for me. So that gives me time. So I definitely try to focus on self-care as much as possible. Definitely, when I get a chance, I love to read. I do not get to read as much as I used to. So Audible has become my best friend when I'm stuck in a car driving somewhere. So I get a chance to enjoy Audible when I can't sit down and read a good book. And other than that, spending time with my children, just doing absolutely nothing, whether we are playing with cars or Barbie dolls or the latest Pop It or Roblox, whatever we're doing. I love to spend time at home. If I could be a homebody, I definitely would, because I love to enjoy my home. I love to sit outside in the backyard. I love nature, which I've done that since I was a kid. But I think self-care is super important. I really try to be mindful of those things as busy as I am. But today I'm getting this massage and it's going to be all about me.
You're very inspiring. I love how you just embrace every single aspect of your life to the fullest.
Try to. I definitely try
It's
to.
wonderful.
Every day isn't perfect, but I try to.
Well, as we get close to wrapping up here, what inspirational message do you have for our aspiring veterinarians who are listening?
I would like to tell them to never forget to dream. Sometimes we forget to dream. Sometimes we forget the dreams we had as children. Because as children, we just figured we could conquer the world. We could do everything. Everything was so simple. And I think sometimes we forget to have those same dreams as grown-ups, or even as becoming a veterinarian. Being a veterinarian for me was a dream as a 5 or 6 year old. So I can say today, I guess I'm living the dream, because not everybody got a chance to. I meet so many people on a daily basis that, are a receptionist at stores and says, or the checkout person, the cashier that says, I wanted to be a vet, when they find out I'm a vet. And I say, it's not too late. And they're like, oh no, I don't want to do school that long. That's what stopped me from doing it then. But sometimes you have to be willing to make a short-term sacrifice for a long-term goal. And it's worth it if it's something that you really feel like you want to do. But don't forget to dream. Even when you meet the dream and you become the vet, it's still some more dreams that are out there. So never forget to dream.
This is wonderful. Thanks so much for being on the show, Phenomenal Woman.
You're welcome, Pink Phoenix.
You can learn about other League of VetaHuman superheroes at VetaHumanz.org. If you like this episode, and I know you did, please subscribe, rate, and share it with your friends. And remember, use your powers for good.